Welcome back to the Youth Parliament. In this particular Youth Parliament, which is one forum where we try and make sure that India's newsmakers, policymakers, decision makers and opinion makers come face to face with the youth of this country, with Generation Next, to get a sense of what they seek from them and also get a sense of whether the core issues which need to be dealt with by policymakers is dealt with in a way that is meeting the aspirations of India's future. In this particular Youth Parliament, taking off on the broad theme, our subject is foreign policy. Foreign policy which encompasses all areas of strategic affairs. And the motion before the House is very simple. It is, and I say this, quote, India's foreign policy is not in line with our global aspirations. In other words, just to very briefly put it in perspective, we are heading towards a general election, and we constantly have the opposition criticizing the government for a weak foreign policy. India is eyeing a seat at the diplomatic high table as a member of the UN Security Council. But do we and have we shown enough might, courage, and vision in the implementation of our foreign policy? Are there domestic compulsions which hold us back? Have we been aggressive enough? Are we being independent enough in the pursuit of our foreign policy? Have we pushed our growing economic might on the diplomatic high table? These, among others, will be some of the various questions, including our difficult relationship with several of our neighbors, will be some of the subjects which we will be addressing in the course of this extended Youth Parliament. And joining me as my co-moderator, very happy to have with me on this table my friend, colleague, and strategic affairs analyst of Times Now, Maruf Raza. Maruf, what are you looking for? When you look at this subject, can we just give us, our panelists, a sense of what subject areas we are looking to debate?
Yeah, apart from getting on with the broad generalities about issues that really India's interaction with the world and various countries are concerned, I mean, I would ideally look for some pointers towards, are we structurally geared towards playing a role in the global arena? Do we have structural assets in place? The second aspect is that what kind of immediate steps we could look at in terms of focusing what should be our foreign policy priorities. Do we need to begin top-down, which is engaging the big powers first and the smaller neighbors later, or should it be the other way around? And finally, what is our long-term vision about ourselves? Are we looking at India continuing to battle fires and react to situations in the neighborhood, or do we look at an India which would be occupant of a position at the high table of world affairs and becoming an example for other countries outside the P5?
Right. Maruf, thanks for summarizing it. I hope that is useful to our panelists. Now, we have 4 members of what we call the establishment. Please don't get the definition of establishment wrong. It essentially here, in the context of the debate, means people who are already playing a role as opinion makers, policy makers, or decision makers. So we have a representation there. For the motion, Ravi Shankar Prasad, let's give them all a hand. He's Deputy Leader of the Opposition in the Rajya Sabha and one of the most vocal members of the Bharatiya Janata Party. And to give him some competition head-on, the Union Minister for Information and Broadcasting, and someone who is very strong on foreign policy and strategic affairs, Manish Tiwari. Thank you very much. We have top-level participation on this debate. And speaking for the motion, one of India's foremost strategic affairs analysts, a man whose independent mind and numerous articles make him one of the foremost experts of the region and the world, Dr. Brahma Chailani. It's a pleasure to see you face-to-face this evening. And you've seen him so many times earlier on our debates on Times Now, the former High Commissioner to Pakistan, very vocal, very independent. Some call him a hawk, but tonight he is actually on the side of the government, or rather, should I say, he says he's against the motion that India's foreign policy is not in line with our global aspirations. G. Parthasarathi, welcome to the debate. Now I want a louder applause for our young participants. And speaking for the motion from GNLU Law University in Ahmedabad is Karmani, 24 years old. Speaking against the motion and for the government, I presume, therefore, though I don't want to make any presumptions with this young man, his name is Sauryadeep, 22 years old from IIT. Sauryadeep. And Tahmi Shahid, 23-year-old from the Shadan Institute of Medical Sciences in Hyderabad, is speaking for the motion. Welcome. And the last young participant to introduce today from the IIIT Bangalore, 20-year-old Raijul, is speaking against the motion. We are opening the debate by requesting our young participants to set the ball rolling. And Tehmi Shahid is our first speaker for the motion on why she believes India's foreign policy is not in line with our global aspirations. Tehmi, the floor is yours for 3 minutes.
Beginning with what India's global aspirations really are, to summarize them, what we by consensus of the youth feel the global aspirations of the youth would be: one, being an economic power in the world; secondly, attaining a military security that India is a formidable power in our neighborhood; thirdly, protection of the Indian diaspora wherever they are in the world; and lastly, having a global soft power that people can reckon with. Now, these are the global aspirations that the youth of India recognize with, but our foreign policy is certainly not in line with these aspirations, and we say that for several reasons. First and foremost, our foreign policy has failed in prioritizing where we intend to reach first. By this, basically what I mean is that we have not been able to achieve a holistic approach in where we can get to our economic status and our military status hand by hand. We have not been able to achieve that. But the depressing part of this argument is that we have not even been able to prioritize which one we would like to attempt at first, whether it's going towards an economic power or going towards a military security power. And not just by that, by prioritizing, I also mean that we have failed in prioritizing where we intend to see India, as in our neighborhood, do we see India as a militarily secured nation, or towards the world as in India as a growing power? So on both fronts, whether it's economy or military, or in the neighborhood and the world at large, we have failed to prioritize in our foreign policy. Also, this is an argument that has been coming up a lot, that we have failed to seize opportunities in our foreign policy, and this we can say by a lot of our neighboring countries have had governments that are largely pro-India, or they've had softer sentiments towards the Indian people. But we have failed to capitalize on this sentiment and project on a more powerful Indian sentiment, and lost the opportunity, and now we're facing a threat where a more anti-India sentiment can arise in these nations. For example, the best example I could give is Bangladesh, where a more radical kind of a government is threatening to come up. Also, what I would like to talk about is the disconnect that our foreign policy makers seem to have with the defense and intelligence. And I would not like to keep this as a completely anti-UPA kind of an argument, though I would like to also criticize all governments that have basically been making foreign policies irrespective of who they are. In the Kargil war, for example, there have been intelligence reports again and again that there would be an incursion from Kargil, in the Kargil from the Pakistani side, and we have not been able to establish a kind of a connect between our defense, intelligence, and the Ministry of External Affairs. Now, coming to the Ministry of External Affairs, it's extremely sad to say that our Ministry of External Affairs is pretty much the same size as that of Singapore, and Singapore happens to be a very small country. So it's rather a depressing thought for a country that aims to be a global superpower, that our Ministry of External Affairs is so small. And for those people who would, obviously from the defending side, would say that, we are going to look at a glass half full approach by saying that our foreign policy has managed to come up with the Copenhagen and the ASEAN, and also gearing up for the Security Council seat. Let's just be practical a little bit. When we look at our foreign policy through a glass half full approach, what we are basically depriving ourselves of is the chance to criticize ourselves and look at an opportunity to improve. If we are going to be complacent about our foreign policy where it is right now, we're not going to improve any further. And that brings us to our most beloved neighbors, whom we cannot talk about without talking about our foreign policy, is China and Pakistan. Unfortunately, you can pick on your enemies, you can pick on your friends, you can't pick on your neighbors, sadly. So, with China, people say that you can't really compare about the military figures or the strategic figures with China. I think that's not a very healthy argument to make, because we are geostrategically positioned with China in such a way that whether you want to or not, China is an important player in the foreign policy. We have to compare China, and China will likewise compare with us, because both of these countries are looking forward to become a regional power in the Indian subcontinent in the coming time, and it has been projected by 2050. The three of the most powerful countries in the world would be United States of America, China,
Right.
and India. So if we want to be where we are, that is, see our global aspirations come to realization, we have to talk about China, and we have to deal with China in a healthy way. Because what we have done is our foreign policy has failed to capitalize on markets where China is already gaining ground. And by that, I rest my case by saying that our foreign policy is certainly not in line with our global aspirations of India becoming a superpower.
Well, I think you've looked at a very broad perspective. Round of applause for Tahmid Shahid. Now our second speaker is Sauradeep, and he's speaking against the motion.
I'd like to talk about three things, which is firstly, that in terms of timing, we are spot on with our foreign policy because there are certain tools that the government that comes to power post-2014 will have at their disposal, which previous governments haven't had. And secondly, that we have managed to maintain a very delicate strategic balance. And thirdly, that there are certain constraints within the democratic process, which means that oftentimes the strategy, though it may be in line, the execution doesn't go through, and that's a trade-off you're willing to make. But at the very outset, let's be very clear. There are specific mistakes that are made by every country on foreign policy. That is not an indictment of saying that a broad strategy is certainly not in line with our overall goals. So for instance, China had an entire hegemony on the Myanmar market, but they pushed them too far, led to the Mighty Son Dam project being cancelled, and now every country has access to the market in Myanmar. USA made a similar mistake, right? They ended up subsidizing terror in Pakistan in attempting to fighting terror in Afghanistan. Every country makes mistakes. A few mistakes cannot be picked upon by the other bench to extrapolate that into an overall indictment. Now, coming to the aspect of timing, I'm quite certain that this issue will crop up, that we haven't been strong enough or stringent enough against Pakistan. But let's be very clear. We couldn't have done that at a time when the United States had been pumping billions of dollars into a war on terror in which Pakistan was considered a strategic ally. But what have we done? We have ensured a very strategic pivot from being a Soviet ally 20 years back to now reaching a stage where the USA is willing to co-develop next generation Javelin tanks with India, have a huge defense pact with us at the same time as they are pulling out of NATO, which means that post-2014, our next government will have the tool at their disposal to put Pakistan under pressure. So criticizing previous governments on that issue is slightly unfair to begin with, right? What we have also accomplished is a delicate balance. We accrue nuclear submarines from Russia while managing to sign a nuclear peaceful deal with the United States. We are friends with both Palestine and Israel. We have managed to ensure that our trade interests with Egypt do not suffer through transitions from Mubarak to the army, to Mohammed Morsi, and again to the army. And we have managed to maintain our friends in the Middle East, which is really strategically important for us, despite the amount of chaos going there. That's certainly a benefit and certainly an achievement of our strategic policy.
Well, thank you, Sauradeep. Thank you. Well, I'm glad you look at Pakistan only through the American prism. Others will say, is it true that prime ministers since 99 have been guided by their personal conviction in their relationship towards Pakistan? We'll go into those issues in detail, and I'm sure the next speaker will. Ravi Shankar Prasad is our next speaker, speaking for the motion, Deputy Leader of the Opposition in the Rajya Sabha. The floor is yours for 3 minutes.